Today on Rerez, we're looking at a product unlike anything we've ever looked at before. In fact, I had to give it special consideration before accepting it because you see, if it's mishandled, this product will really hurt you. This is the LaserCube, the world's smallest laser display sent in by Wicked Lasers. This is a Class 4 laser. That means it will burn your skin if you touch it, and it can cause permanent eye damage if you look into it. It will engrave items and it can pop balloons because the laser is just that powerful. But we didn't test any of these features ourselves because of safety concerns. But here is a video from the company's website where they demonstrate it. By law, these lasers must be equipped with an interlock and a key switch, which the LaserCube has. To power on, you first connect the interlock, flip on the power switch, and then turn the key control to enable the laser. Complete these steps in any other order, and the laser will not turn on. You should only use this device in a controlled environment and never use it outdoors. This should never be aimed at any surface that's even slightly reflective. This thing is serious and not a toy. I can't stress this enough. So why are we covering this on Rerez? Well, because it also plays video games. Yeah, that's right. When I heard the LaserCube had built-in video games, the first thing I thought was vector-based gaming, and I just had to check it out for myself. So, how does it work? The LaserCube programming is controlled by an app called LaserDock. You can download it on Windows, Mac, and Android devices. The LaserCube connects directly to your device with a USB cable, and without this connection, the laser will not function. All of the games you're about to see can be played with a USB or Bluetooth controller. You can also use touchscreen controls on your phone, but I really wouldn't recommend that. Personally, I would recommend an Xbox controller, but if you go on Wicked Lasers' website, you can see that there is a controller there that you can buy from them called the ShineCon Supreme Smartphone Game Companion. It feels incredibly light and very flimsy. I can't recommend it because it just doesn't feel well made. But all the games I played did work with an Xbox One controller, so if you have the chance to play this, that's what I would recommend using. Now, on to the games. What you're getting here are smaller experiences. Make no mistake about that. Many of the titles are inspired by classic arcade games of the 70s and 80s, and some of them are fun to play, but they're no replacement for the originals. You'll find a pretty massive collection of games on here, with a lot of them playing pretty well, but then a lot of them playing pretty poorly. They feel like they were quickly put together and maybe could have benefited from some more time and care, but the crisp, sharp glow you get from the laser doesn't disappoint. It really does look like the glow you'd get from a classic vector display monitor. I mean, look how good this looks! All the footage in this video was filmed off a wall in our studio. There was no emulation used at all, and this is the exact image as projected by the LaserCube. And because of how powerful this laser is, if you have a big enough wall, you can make this image massive. We're not really going to talk about every single game here because there simply is way too many, but a couple of them do warrant talking about just a little bit more, even if they're not really done very well. Moonlander. This clone of Lunar Lander is a perfect example of a downside of laser-drawn graphics. The image produced by the laser is never static. In fact, the laser is always moving, so this generates kind of a floaty-looking graphic quality. So in the case of Moonlander, your target is always slightly shifting around. This makes it very difficult to aim your lander, and it just doesn't feel like a very good game. Laser Frog. This is a clone of the popular title Frogger. It demonstrates another problem with these laser graphics: flicker. The more moving images and the more color being projected at the same time, the more the image seems to flicker. Also, it's very finicky when you're trying to line up your frog with one of the slots at the end of the level, and there is only one level. It's not a very good version of the game, and it's definitely not a Frogger I'd recommend to anyone. Protector. This Defender clone doesn't play very well. The original Defender arcade games gives you a radar at the top so that you can see where everything is. Because of the visual limitations with this game though, and using it on a laser projector, you don't see that, and it really impacts the way that you play this game. Typhoon. This Tempest clone has more precise controls than other games on the LaserCube. It plays really close to the original game, but doesn't feel as good because it's not designed the same way. And the more complex the visuals get, you'll quickly begin to see the flicker return. Laserman. I bet you all know what this game is. Yup, it's Pac-Man. The limitation here is that you don't see the entire playfield at once. As you move Laserman, the field presents itself just slightly around the character, which makes it pretty difficult to know where you're going. However, no matter what, you always see the position of the ghosts, so that kind of helps you. But they're not very difficult to outrun because they move slower than Laserman does. There are two game modes included. The A mode has red dots that you can't pick up or else you'll die, and the power pellets just let you pass through the ghosts, but you don't actually eat them. Laser Laserman B is a more traditional take on Pac-Man. Here you eat power pellets to consume ghosts, but no matter which game mode you prefer, I think we can all agree that Laserman's walk cycle looks pretty awesome. Bust Out. This is a Breakout clone. This game is a good example of how odd the laser graphics look when trying to show lines at right angles. All the boxes have soft corners and always have a small gap left in them, and the ball isn't a sphere but more of an oval spiral thing. This game works pretty well with the analog thumbstick, but I would prefer a spinner, and if you have a USB spinner lying around, you might just be able to use that with this game. Laser Beats. This is a rhythm game that's kind of like DDR. Unfortunately though, it's just not that good. A lot of effort definitely went into this, and there's some pretty good soundtracks that they use on the game, but the problem I have is that it's really hard to understand which button you should be inputting at any given moment, because every time you see it on the screen, it just isn't that well defined. If it was better made, I think a lot more people would have had a lot more fun with this. Lasertris. What would a video game collection be without Tetris? I'm a huge fan of Tetris, but honestly, I could have done without this game. It has messy, finicky controls, and more than once I accidentally shift a piece twice when all I wanted to do was shift it once, and that can really screw up the gameplay, especially when you don't expect it to happen. Game Mode A is a reimagining of Tetris with a bunch of random shapes I've never actually seen before, but Game Mode B is more like actual Tetris. Since the pieces are more standard, it's a little easier to line up where each piece should go, but since the lines are a little floaty and the pieces don't have hard right angles, it's sometimes difficult to tell how two pieces will line up. Also, the more pieces you stack up on the field, the more the image will flicker, and it can get pretty bad. A lot of the games we just talked about had some pretty mixed quality, but I saved the very best for last. These next ones were my favorite experiences to play, and I believe demonstrate the most impressive use of laser graphics. Laser Race. This is a top-down racing game with some pretty cool looking visuals. The LaserCube draws the track as you progress, which makes it kind of look like Micro Machines on the NES. The controls are a little bit wavy and loose, but still fun to play, and the sparks that come off the side of the vehicle when you hit the wall looks amazing. Laser Command. This is a clone of Missile Command, and I always prefer to play Missile Command with a trackball, so this isn't exactly perfect, but what you get here is still really fun to play. Combined with an analog joystick or an analog thumbstick, you can get some pretty decent gameplay out of here that looks really cool with the laser graphics. Tank Boom Boom. This is a combat game very similar to Artillery Duel. It's fun to play, it works really well, and most importantly, it's simple. The only thing I really don't like about it is that the AI is pretty bad, but there is a second game mode that lets you play a two-player version with a single controller. This is one of the few multiplayer games on here, and it's definitely one that can be a lot of fun if you enjoy this kind of game. Castle. This clone of Star Castle has very smooth gameplay, and combined with using a D-pad, I found this to be one of the more enjoyable games on the set. Tank Maze. Inspired by the arcade game Tank, in this game you play a green tank trying to eliminate the red enemy tanks. The gameplay is very smooth, and it's a pleasure to play. Your tank really feels like it's got some weight to it, and I had a lot of fun playing this game. But unfortunately, whenever you get destroyed, it happens really quick and you immediately go back to the very first level. That much kinda sucks. Laser Bird. The last thing I expected to find in this collection was a Flappy Bird clone, but here it is. And personally, I think it works pretty well. It's easier to play than the original Flappy Bird, but it has some difficulty that does increase as you go along. This is probably one of the highest recommendations I can give on here, but there was one game that completely surpassed it in every single way and became the standard game I believe everyone should play on the LaserCube. Laseroids. Despite the really clumsy name, this Asteroids clone is awesome. It plays great, and they incorporated different abilities that you can pick up that makes the gameplay a little bit more complex than the original. And when you shoot at things, you can see the laser shot, and it's nice and bright, exactly how it would have looked on a vector monitor in the arcades. There are good home versions of the Asteroids arcade game, like the arcade 1-up cabinet that we've looked at in the past, but they're missing that iconic vector display. This is the closest I've seen to vector graphics without having a vector monitor. Asteroids translates to this platform way better than Tempest did. It's very fun to play, and personally, I think it completely surpasses the original arcade release, because even though the original release used a vector monitor, these lasers just look brighter and sharper than even what those monitors were capable of. The LaserCube has some pretty cool possibilities for gaming, and although there aren't many amazing games using the platform at the moment, that could change in the future. All in all, this was was a cool device to play with, but I personally couldn't recommend it as a gaming device. There are just way too many safety concerns and too few genuinely good games to justify the purchase. But if you just want a laser display device, well, as long as you understand the risks and know how to use it safely, well, then this thing here probably could fit your needs. This device is incredibly cool looking and provides graphics that you will not get anywhere else. And although laser-based game development isn't exactly where it needs to be right now, I believe with more time and advances in technology, we will see more interesting designs with fewer limitations. But for now, what the LaserCube offers is a glimpse at all the possibilities in the future.